Hi, welcome to the GC Wesley podcast. We are here doing a live recording today, and this whole interview and discussion will be available on our podcast, and you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts at the GC Wesley podcast. So my name is Morgan, and I am on staff with GC Wesley, and this is our director,
Tate Welling. Also on staff at GC Wesley.
Also on staff. And we have a guest today, Nick.
Nick, it is I.
It is you. Thank you for joining us here today, Nick. And Nick is one of Tate's friends. Also,
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Tate.
hey Tate.
Good to see you.
We've also become friends over
Great friends.
over the period of past couple of days.
I'm grateful.
And so we obviously thought that this was a very important time to discuss what race looks like in America. And there are a lot of topics to talk about pertaining to this one issue in our current climate. And so we just wanted to be able to sit here, have an honest conversation, and to hear from Nick about what his experience was like and currently is like. And so, Nick, would you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Of course. Well, like you said, I'm Nick Harper, born and raised here in Milledgeville. I attended Georgia Military College Prep School for middle school and high school. Then went on to Savannah State University, one of the world's greatest HBCUs. Got to plug that in. And just country boy, born and bred here.
Nice.
Good morals, values. Good old Millie Vegas.
It's a good city to be
Yeah.
living in.
Learned a lot. And
He's literally a Mokel. I mean, you don't get more Mokel than
I
born
am.
and raised here.
That's it. Mokel.
That's true.
Yeah, but that's me.
Okay.
I currently do a lot within the community now. I'm pretty much like straddled between Milledgeville and Sparta.
Okay.
Because I'm an associate pastor at Beulah Missionary Baptist Church.
Wonderful.
That's pretty much in Sparta.
Okay.
So I do a lot there, and as well as I'm part of the counseling team at a local elementary school here in Milledgeville. So got my hand pretty much in a lot.
Sure.
But I'm so grateful to be
Yeah.
back home and to be doing what God has purposed me to do, I would say. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful, especially being involved in your local community and getting both sides, not only at the elementary school, but
Yes.
also as the associate pastor.
Yes.
So that's very cool. What do you feel like what was it like just growing up in rural central Georgia for you?
Rural Georgia. I would say this. If you could figure it out or Google or watch a movie on how it is in rural Georgia, that would be me growing up in Milledgeville.
Okay.
Just because that's what the area kind of it gives you. But me, on the other hand, me kind of going to a prep school for pretty much a large majority of me creating like my foundations and everything that I stand on now, it was a little bit different. Because as a black man, going to a school where you're one of 7 in the whole high school or one of 7 black people in your class, dealt with a lot.
Sure.
Had a lot of hard conversations. Also bypassed a lot of conversations just because of the aspect of me being the minority. Of course, with the current climate that we're in, it's something that I was very familiar with growing up. Had to develop a certain type of lens of intentionality of what I saw around in my surroundings and how I addressed things that were going on in my surroundings, to the point where I was always taught to kind of, it's that straddling of, okay,
Sure.
You can be friends or you can be at a place where you're the minority, but at the same time, we're not going to be bold enough to being that presence to know that we belong, or to know that I belong in that space, in that same space. So it is what it is. I would say that. But great times, and Milledgeville is one of those towns where it kind of gives you that encouragement at times, but also it can give you that I guess that rough side, or that quote unquote Google, oh, you grew up in rural Georgia. Okay. Yeah. It'll give you that too.
Right.
So
he's out there in the yard just playing with a tire swing.
Right.
Tire swing.
Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit more about that intentionality lens that you were talking about?
Yes. Like I said, me being who I am, and still, even as a young guy, I was pretty much involved. I always been a church boy, been a community type person, and within the community, my family was within the community, but my mom wanted greater for us or whatnot. So although we achieved that greater with going to school, when we came home, we still had to be involved with my culture and people that a lot of my cousins and friends wasn't afforded the opportunity to attend a prep school. So it was kind of like that code switch thing where at school I knew I was around my white friends, and I knew I was the minority, but at home it was time to switch back into, okay, this is the Nick. This is your neighborhood, that's Uncle Pete up there, and it's not Uncle Pete, or it's not Mr. So and so, or like that. So it's more so of that, just knowing where you are and feeling the tone of the areas of where you are, and always being conscious of what's around you. That's that kind of lens that I viewed from. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I could totally see how that could for sure impact like your identity. And how do you feel like you were able to like really find the true Nick? You're like,
true me?
You're like, I can be myself.
Well, one thing about me though, I've always been like that outgoing person. And that person that was gonna be bold enough to stand on who I am. So although I mastered the code switch, and I don't want to sound like I'm just rambling or anything, although I mastered the code switch or whatnot, a part of me being in those two different spaces, it was genuinely me, pretty much. Because even when I would go back into the neighborhoods or the communities, it would pretty much be the reward of, hey, Mom, this is what you wanted. Like, this is what's working for me, and this is who I am now, and this is that buildup of who you see. And that kind of provided that hope to my friends in the neighborhood, but at the same time, I did get some type of strife, like, oh, you going to school, you sound like a white boy, or you got white friends now, so you don't hang with us, or we don't see you too often. But it wasn't none of that. It was just me just being exposed to something that others didn't have the opportunity to be exposed to. I would say that.
Yeah.
Nick, can you explain to us what you mean when you say code switch?
Code switch.
For anyone that may not know what you mean.
Gotcha. Code switch is one of those things where, we all have that type of comfort around our friends, and then say, for instance, you go to work, that same comfort that you have around your friends is not the same comfort you're going to have with your boss.
Right.
But in a situation that me or like I grew up in, as far as with being that minority, young people, we spend most of our days or most of our lives at school or whatnot. So we're rarely at home. So it was that point of kind of molding into my environment of walking the halls of white people or people that are not of the black race or whatnot. So it's not so much of just code switching, it's just me just picking up on their interactions and
like social cues,
social cues,
language, body language,
and that stuff like seeps into me. So you can't help but to kind of or have to adapt to that environment, because that's how they will receive you. That's how they will understand you. That's how they will hear you. But at the same time, I can't leave there, and I can't go back to Beulah Highway and be like, hey, dude, Do you mind helping me out fixing my bike real quick?
Right.
They'd be like, who is this guy?
They're like, wait, what? So you want me to just fix your bike, right?
Yeah.
Why you need to say that, bro?
Just fix my bike. Right.
I'm curious, is it more an intentional switch, or is it more a subconscious switch? Does that make sense?
I would say initially starting out, it's intentional because it's like I'm trying to fit in, or I'm trying to make sure people see my ability to adapt to my environment. But like I said, as the more you do it, it really becomes subconscious where, hey, I mean, I can't, if I'm around people who, and I don't think proper English is the right word or whatnot, but if I'm around people who speaking well or whatnot, I'm not going to sit here and be the one that's not speaking well or, you know, speaking in broken English and whatnot, because they probably won't understand me for one, but then for two, they're going to look at me like, he's a very peculiar guy.
I don't think I trust him.
His pants may be a little baggy, but I got on a belt, brother.
Got on a belt.
Yeah. But it was just certain things like that. Man,
yeah.
so.
I got you.
Do you feel like there was a time when you can remember, like, even just in school, and you were like, okay, I kind of have to adjust to my environment based on how you feel like other people might perceive you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And with me, especially me being over there, being one of the minorities, I guess I was considered kind of one of the token black guys, where other people or the white population would see, like, although he's black, guess what? He speaks well, and he's outgoing, and he has a vibrant personality. Yeah. So we're going to use him and pull him for everything. And then I was pretty smart too. So I was afforded a lot of opportunities where just not your average white person wouldn't even get the opportunity to do. So when you're walking into the boardroom, speaking to the whole trustee board of a whole school or whatnot, you have to make that adjustment, or you have to sit upright and have your back pressed against the back of the chair and all that type of stuff. So that's just one simple example. But just on a regular level, like with being peers on a peer level, walking to schools, walking the halls, I've had plenty occurrences where I had to show that I'm able to adapt, or show that I belong in the space. Okay. But as well as I've had some situations where I had to show that, hey, I'm a black man too now. Yeah. So everything that you believe black men to be, as far as with just being a little aggressive or to be loud or something like that, I have that aspect of me too, and it can come out because it seems like sometimes that was some people's perception of how they would respect me or give me the respect. Okay. If I tied into their stereotypical
assumptions. Yeah.
So interesting.
And so, being someone who you spend your days in an elementary school, and then also heavily involved in the local church and local community, how do you feel like you were able to realize that both of those things were areas that you wanted to get involved in?
It's all ministry. I would say it's all ministry. I think I tell Tate this when we first just kind of linked up and became friends and whatnot. And I say, God, man, it's pretty much a lot of my days where I literally do ministry. Like I've been doing ministry like nonstop. Like all I'm involved with, I can look back and like, God, you really outdid yourself when you told me, when you gave me the call. You really meant that, huh? Because every avenue of my life is like opportunity for ministry. And just being in the school setting and being in the community, you get that full circle occurrence, and you get that full circle kind of feel of the purpose behind what you do. Because you start out with the youngins, but you know those are the youngins that's going to end up in the community. Yeah. And then when they end up in the community, they're going to become the parents that birth more youngins that go back into it's like the whole cycle.
Looking at that cycle.
So if you have a purpose of changing the future or making an impact on the future, then why not make it through that cycle there?
Right.
And that's what I view what I do and how I'm involved with. I'm like, wow, this somewhere along the lines that impact is going to be made even long after I'm gone.
Right. So valuable.
It's valuable, right?
Right.
And I even love you work in both extremes in the sense of with young kids and in your church. I know through conversations you told me just it's an older church, right? Just like a lot of the churches
In the
out
rural,
in Sparta area. And, I pastored a church not even far from yours for 3.5 years, and it was just like yours. I mean, older folks there. And so it's interesting that you have that place of influencing lives of extremely young, elementary age kids, but also the older generation as well that are going to play a vital role in any change that we see, any immediate change is going to be heavily steered by our older generation. So you are in a unique spot.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
Most definitely. What are some things that you, like, in those hopes that you have for the younger generation? What are some things that you hope for the younger crew?
I always tell the young people I talk to, my hope for them is just to live up to their best potential or the maximum potential that they have. I start off by letting them know that it won't be easy, and no one really knows the amount of potential you have. You don't even know your own potential, but be the best version of yourself you can.
Okay.
And be willing to adjust within that best version, because some days you may feel like you're this person, then the next day you may feel totally different. But just extending that grace to yourself is my hope, that they understand to extend that grace to themselves.
Yeah.
To endure this process of just growing, man, and tapping into that full potential.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot, what I see too often is that you have a lot of the younger generation that don't realize the potential they possess, so they just merely exist and merely just go through life, or at least go through their young stages, just doing, okay, I just here to follow the instructions. Mom, tell me what to do.
And it doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't.
Right.
Like you can step out and you can actually set up the trajectory of where you see yourself in life right now.
Man, I mean, that must just be so encouraging for them to hear, and like what wisdom to be able to speak into their lives, and that's a piece of advice that they'll.
And I get it all the time, especially when I deal with a lot of my teens. They're like, man, Mr. Harper, you always preaching, man. I don't want to hear this. But it's something that I'm like, I'm not preaching to you, buddy.
Right.
I'm really just telling you.
Yeah.
This is what life is,
And you can do it. Yeah, you can get through out on the other side.
And as they are growing, because I've had a cycle of, as the teenagers grow and they go off to college, some graduate college. Yeah, I'm that old now.
Yeah.
And they start to come back and
Yeah.
and just to hear some of some of those revelatory stories, like, bro, I really appreciated that encouragement. This coming from the same person, like, oh, here you go. You always want to talk my ear off, brother.
Yeah.
That was Reverend Harper.
Reverend Harper.
But yeah, that's
incredible.
That's my piece, man. And if anybody that know me, they know, man, he'd give his last to make sure the next generation is A-okay, or at least encouraged at the least.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. That's good. That's real good. And earlier you were talking about how you see so many, pretty much every day, as an opportunity for ministry. And how do you feel like your relationship with the Lord has kind of guided you here, and also will continue to guide you into further moments?
I would say it's been very, very crucial, my relationship with God, just to endure this process and this journey. Won't say that it always been easy, because there's been some days where I get to the point like, well, God, where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you? Like, because sometimes you can feel discouraged a little bit, or a little exhausted from the work that you do,
Yeah.
especially when you have a heart to serve people,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you can't force people to receive the service or to receive that servantship like you want them to.
Yeah.
It may not come with accolades, and you don't expect the accolades or anything, but you kind of want to see that instant impact.
Yeah.
Like if I just spoke to you in your ear, I want to be able to see you tomorrow, kind of
Make a little
bit of change,
Yeah.
man. But it's not always like that, and those are some of those moments where it kind of gets you like, oh, God, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's always a little spark that says, I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
That offers that encouragement where you have one come to you like, hey, man, you know what? I need your
actually
help,
heard,
man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, or just a phone call like, hey, you know, I got 2 A's. I passed my test, brother. I'm like, appreciate it. Good. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm proud of you, man.
Right.
And just those simple things right there, that's what kind of grows my heart
Mm-hmm.
right there.
That's awesome.
And I don't want to sound like I'm just a softy and like I'm the world's greatest kindergarten teacher or whatnot, but
There's gonna be a Hallmark movie about
Right.
Nick.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, well, I'd say my relationship is definitely it's crucial to all of this, because it takes that relationship and trusting the Lord to guide me and to keep me focused and to just give me strength.
Right. I mean, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're not only serving your local community, and you're making a lasting impact on these students' lives, and that's embodying the Christ's heart for sure. That servant heart is so major. Yeah. I want to kind of be able to shift our conversation more so as to the events that have unfolded in our country in the past 6 months.
To the
Yeah.
to the cookies and milk, huh? Real deal.
Let's get to the reason
Let's just
why
get
we're,
to it.
The
enough
reason
about
why
Nick.
we're here.
Why are we here?
Why we're here.
I mean, Nick's awesome and all. but
Yeah.
Thanks, Tate.
And I feel like even just like having an open conversation is a healthy start to
Yes.
just making moves.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you feel like you've been able to healthily process the events of 2020?
The events of
Pertaining-
2020?
Pertaining to race in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I was just about to say
Yeah.
2020. We
Yeah.
could-
Sorry, let me
we'll
clarify.
be here to 2040
Yeah.
just talking
Kobe
about
Bryant.
2020. But giving you the feels of what's been going on, just even in the last 6 months, because like I said, it's coming from a life that I lived and whatnot, so it's not so much of too much of a shock, but at the same time, it has caused a little bit more anxieties around the situations and around the current climate we live in, because it's not only that, because there's always been like a understanding that, okay, it's there. The world is not nice
Yeah.
or whatnot, but to see it actually unfold and have a lot of spotlight behind it and a lot of like topical attention to it, that's what brings that anxiety to you, because you know you got people that are struggling with trying to process, or struggling trying to ask the questions, struggling with trying to maintain the relationships from a white and black perspective.
Yeah.
Because I have some black buddies who just within the last 6 months, although from a cultural standpoint, we always knew that race was an issue, or race was a thing, or something we struggled with, or something we had to deal with that wasn't right or whatnot. Still have them sitting here like, okay, I don't even know how to feel in this moment. Like, because it's like somebody has placed like a 1,000-pound weight on your shoulder, man, lit from a burning furnace. So that not only is that heavy weight, it's actually hot too. So it's like you're trying to focus and you're trying to have the right answers when people come to you and question you and try to assess your feelings in the moment. But then you also have the ones that are like, yeah, I'm glad it's finally coming to the head. Now y'all see what we've been struggling with, and we approach it from a standpoint of, and it could be maybe ignorance, but it could be just a standpoint of just strong feelings and passion.
Certainly.
To the whole process of
Yeah.
enduring a past of what our ancestors endured, and you know that carries on through generations. And so the last 6 months for me, I would say, has been, like I said, it's offered a lot of anxieties, but it also has been a little gratifying to me too, because it's causing the hard conversations to be had. And if we're ever going to move to a place where we're able to operate in unity, or we're able to operate in the lack of those implicit biases and everything, we're going to have to start with these hard conversations.
Yeah.
Instead of having that sort of like, I understand I know what's going on, but I'm not going to speak on it. You're going to have sit down and say, hey, I'm a white guy, I just really want to understand.
Let's
or,
talk.
Hey,
right.
let's talk. Hey, I'm a black guy, and I never really been around white people like that. I grew up in projects or whatnot. So when I'm around you guys, I automatically get scared anyway. So because I don't know how to approach you, and I don't know how to communicate with you guys. And I think it's a foreign space. So just breaking that barrier to have the conversation is what I'm most grateful for. Just the climate that we're in now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think I'm talking a lot, right?
Yeah, you good, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just packing it on, man.
No.
I
You're
do
good.
think, as difficult as this time is, like I don't want to suggest that. Here's a great thing about police brutality. Like that's not what I'm saying, but it is. I think one of the benefits of these things being brought to the forefront is it does make a good avenue to use to have a conversation that we should be having just in general anyway. And so I do think that is probably one of the gifts. This is a good way to say it. I think that's one of the ways that God can redeem this season that we're in is by at least teaching us how to have a conversation. Because even as you and I have been talking over the past few months about wanting to do this and kind of preparing for it, we have both even come to this place of like, I don't know the answer to this thought or this question, and have found a hard time putting words to it. And I think it's because we probably don't have these kind of conversations enough to even know, like what to ask and heck, what not to ask, right? And so I think it's been helpful for me, and I do think that's one of the redemptive parts of this very difficult season for our difficult past 6 months for people of color, and also for our country. Like I think this hasn't been a great moment for our country, and I'd like to see us respond well to it. But
it's so weird too, because even in the current climate, you have so many people that you can see are skating around it or walking on the pins and needles about the topic alone, or just trying to address it. Where I got to the point where I had a lot of conversations just in this season where, you get to the point like, well, how do you feel? And there's always a little bit of hesitation about how you feel about what's going on and being a person of color or African. Hey, look, I'm black. You can say it, man.
Yeah.
And having having that type of conversation, like, hey, it's okay. Like, address it. Call a spade, and let's talk and ask your question. Yeah. And then maybe you'll find something from this sit down that's gonna grow you as well as grow myself, even in the midst.
Right. Yeah, like those conversations being mutually beneficial when discussed in a healthy manner.
And I think even in that, like a big place where we don't know how to have that conversation well is, I should say it this way, I think a reason why we don't practice that conversation is because we haven't shown as a society a lot of grace in places to learn and to grow and right, like just like what you said, like African American, Black. What do you say, right? And in honesty, as I've been asking people that from younger generations, I get the response Black. From older generations, I get the response African American. And it makes sense to me, just practically speaking. But like, man, if we could, I think even as you and I have been conversating, and our heart and intention is to have a good conversation, a meaningful conversation, and realizing I don't even know the answer to this question, like having to show one another grace and like, well, I guess we just don't know. And how much more grace are we going to need to show in the places of like, man, your heart is so bad. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
your intentions are so not good. But like, and again, I'm not trying to say let's just give the devil a popsicle here.
Right.
You know, like, well, nice for you to be with us. But
Trying
I
to-
do think it is like opportunity for questions that will be like, for someone to be like, what is code switching? Like, and then be like, I can't believe you don't know that. How do
Yeah.
you not know what that is? You ignorant person, you know, like, and to be able to walk through, like, man, I mean, I remember very beginning whenever you and I were on that Pastoral Alliance thing this summer, and they were talking about Juneteenth, and I was like, I think I was one of two white guys on this call, and I'm like, guys, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never heard this word before in my entire life. So, and that was I think even one of the things that we brought from that was like, maybe we should explain to some people what Juneteenth even is, right? And it was funny. It was either you or your brother that I was asking this, but after that conversation, Juneteenth was everywhere, like all over. LeBron James was tweeting Juneteenth, and I was like, why is it all over my Instagram? Like, why is this?
Yeah, you call
So-
me. You
And you're
call
like,
me.
no, this. He was like, it's not that. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just the environment we're in right now,
Yeah.
right? He's like, it's not always this.
Explosive.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, because I was wondering, have I been under a rock this whole
Yeah.
time? But I think we're going to need some grace to ask questions of like, to basically reveal our heart, you know, to say, man,
Yeah.
like what you said with your friend, like, man, or not your friend, but if someone's like, hey, I've grown up in the projects, I'm kind of scared of white people.
Right.
To be able to say that and me not be like, see, I told you.
You got it too. It's on both sides.
It's on both sides,
Yeah.
right? Like to be like, hey,
Yeah.
I get it. I also see why people would be scared of me. I mean, look at me.
Big swole, you know.
If you're
You're
listening
mean.
to the podcast and not watching the video, I'm big. Nick is a little smaller than I am.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was having a conversation, having to even just explain. I got really loud right there. having to explain like that there's a such thing called white privilege to
Yeah.
to black people.
Yeah.
Although they didn't know what to call it, they were just like, yeah, man, it's just different.
Yeah. They knew that there was
They
something.
knew it, right?
Yeah.
It's called white privilege, my brother.
They're like, I don't know if it's white privilege, but
Yeah.
they're definitely privileged. Yeah,
right,
it is
it's
white
something
privilege.
like that, man. So this, like I said, this climate that we're in, it brought about just defining moments that should have been already based around conversation from us growing up. But it always had been such a taboo topic where, okay, no, we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
We know that it's there. We know white privilege is there. We know that there's wayward black people as well. We know the culture is aggressive and all that, but we're not going to call attention to
Right.
it. Just
Yeah.
everybody coexists in their worlds and not try to merge the two. Because
Right.
it's too daunting of a task to even begin to put a bridge there. So let's just operate how we've always been. And this current climate we in has started people to like, okay, I'm going to get me some wood and we starting the bridge.
Yeah.
It's time to, yeah,
And that's the
time to
best
start.
thing.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Nick. And I keep chiming in.
Yeah,
You probably
you're
have
good.
more questions.
I mean, we're all here.
But we had, and when we were preparing for all of this, I had the question of what's God's heart for races, and it sounded like I said, "What's God's heart for racists?" But as you were talking, I kind of had the thought of like this is a daunting task, but I appreciate the responsibility and what God has entrusted us with, right? Of obviously with His grace and with Him working in us and through us to do this, but like in Him establishing all these beautiful races, RACES, spelling.
You got it.
Can't spell that.
And establishing that He's also giving us the opportunity to and the responsibility to handle those well, to handle those differences well, to celebrate those differences, because anytime you're a minority, it's always going to feel different, right? Like if y'all are both wearing the same outfit and I was not, I'd be like, man, I kind of feel weird right here. And not to compare the two in the sense of being black to what outfit I'm wearing, but like it's even a responsibility of human beings to help anyone that's feeling it, that is a minority, to feel welcome, to feel a part, to feel celebrated, especially when it comes to something as sacred as race. There's nothing sacred about my outfit, but there is something sacred about our race. And what a gift we've been given to try to steward that responsibility well. So that just struck me whenever you were talking about it's a daunting task, but let's get that wood out and start building something, right? So that's a beautiful picture.
Right, and the grace that you were talking about is so often missed in our current culture, and like there being no grace for A, not knowing, a B, when you get it wrong, and I feel like even just being willing to try to be able to make baby steps in order to be able to witness that lasting impact, I feel like is something that is to be appreciated.
I remember I was in high school. No, not high school. It was actually my summer after my freshman year in college. And there was an old man that went to my church that just, he taught like Sunday school class at our church, and had like all kinds of just knowledge and wisdom. And my mom was like, I didn't know him really at all. And my mom was like, she didn't really know him either, but she said, you should contact him, see if you can meet up with him a few times and learn from him. So I was like, all right, well, that sounds weird. I'm about to go meet with this old man. I mean, I was classic freshman in college. I'm like, I'm about to go meet with this 80-year-old man. Like, what are we going to do? But we went, I contacted him, and he was willing to meet with me a couple of times. And like, I remember he was even showing me this video of the Shroud of Turin. So that's like the thing that covered Jesus' body. And I remember him even telling me this story about the first time that he spoke in tongues, like all this stuff. And I was like, crazy. Just the things I learned a lot in that little bit of time with him. But in one of our meetings, it was one of our last ones. I can't remember if he said, if he referred to someone that was black with the N-word or by saying calling them colored. But either way, it was a word that you're like, oh, that wasn't appropriate.
Right.
And it's kind of like I gleaned, I got a lot from him. But I also saw there's a place where he still, as an 80-year-old man, needs to learn and grow, and there needs to be change in his heart. And I say that because I would have missed a lot if I would have just written him off and said, you got nothing to offer me. But unfortunately for me, or the unfortunate part of the story is, as a freshman in college, I said nothing to him about using that word. I was just like thrown back, and I wish it'd be even greater, because I know this is a great story, but it'd even be a greater story if I would have said, "Hey,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you taught me a lot. Let me teach you something."
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it begins there.
Yeah.
When we as a whole begin to put those pausing statements and conversations like, hey man, I understand, blase, blase, but let me teach you here.
Yeah.
Can it be reciprocal in this sense?
Yeah.
And let me say, how about not using the word color?
Yeah.
How about
Right.
just saying black?
Yeah.
Or how about just saying a minority or something like
Yeah.
that? Let's draw the attention to it or address what we need to address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I want to hear a little bit about how, like, your community has just played a role in your life, and
Okay.
also how your community has impacted, like, what you've been thinking, how you've been able to press in just throughout these past 6 months. What's your
Yes.
community like?
Listen, everything I am is
Yeah.
because of everything I've been through and everyone that have helped raise me and had that village mindset. But the community, coming from one in which I come from, and then having the experience I have, even within this community, the experience of the whole kind of being in a bubble, being
Yeah.
a minority at a prep school or whatnot, but still knowing what type of community that was around this prep school. It's still
Yeah.
rural Georgia at the end of the day, so you still have your signs and you still have your attention to what people may think that is not nice or not cool or
Yeah.
plain out. Let's just, like we've been saying, let's call a spade, where you have your racist moments and all that type of stuff. It has offered me a huge spectrum of how I view things now, because it's like coming from a community and coming from my background and this experience, I can reason with any problem, any conversation that comes out of this whole thing, I would
Right.
say, if you get me, kind of like a grave understanding,
Yeah.
just because of the stuff that I've experienced. Not saying that it doesn't eliminate like the fear that I have as a black man or the anger that I have as a black man around the situations or whatnot. But it just gives me a greater understanding that, okay, I can listen to the conversation, or I can at least speak to a point where, like Tate just said, have a teachable moment in it, or be willing to teach someone if they are, or if I see that their heart is really not good, like you said.
I'm just going to distance myself from that.
Gotta back away.
But that's what the community has
Yeah.
given me, man. That great kind of understanding, because you get it all here in Milledgeville,
Yeah.
and that Sparta area. You may go to one side of town and they say, "Oh, hey Nick,
Yeah.
hey Nicholas." You go to the other side of town, they look, "Hey there, boy. What you doing over here, boy? You sure you need to be over here?" Or not even that, or you just get the looks like, "Now you know you don't belong here."
You're probably here to
Leave.
steal something.
Right. You get all of it. But then you
Yeah.
also you go to another side. Like, what's up, my boy, Nick? What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what, like I said, that it gives you that spectrum, because a lot of people don't get that. Like if you're
Yeah.
urban and you grew up urban, you grew in Metro Atlanta, a certain part of it, that's all you've seen. You hadn't had the
Yeah.
chance to branch out to the Henry County or suburban Atlanta to be able to react with people or be in relations with people that are not like you. So that way, when things like these come around, or this climate we're in now, you're rocked by total shock, because you're like, wow, white people really act like this.
Yeah.
It's not just on the movies. I'm actually seeing it in person now.
Yeah.
But Milledgeville gave me that practical sense
Okay.
of what some people may see in the movies. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You were talking about something as we were, like, planning this conversation out a few days ago, about, it was kingdom over colorism was the phrase that I believe that you had said. And could you tell me a little bit about, like, what that means to you, and what that kingdom mindset is like.
To me, kingdom mindset is just what it is. As a believer, I do believe that everything and in all that I do is for the advancement of the kingdom of God. And even if we're in the midst of something where God has entrusted us to begin the healing process or beginning a shift in the way in the way that we are unified with one another, it's still at the end of the day a kingdom business. It's kingdom mindset, and that's what I kind of want to draw from just this whole climate, and would love for my peers and my colleagues and everything to get from this, that although there is this issue of race, this issue of systemic inequalities, there's this issue of just trying to have the hard conversation and trying to address things that's going on. We can all do that with still the same recognizance of, remember that you are a child of God. You're a child of the Most High. So anything you do, even in trying to correct things or even in your anger, just remember that. That puts aside the racists, RACES, and just really exposes what we're here for, the heart of God. Because although we all are God is just that magnificent and that amazing, where he was able to diversify us all in the form of races or whatnot. He still wanted that same mindset to know that, okay, y'all may be different, but your heart should be the same. And that's what I get, and that's what I say when I say, okay, let's do kingdom over colorisms. It's those. They're going to always be there. The issue's going to always be there, or they're currently there. Not saying they're going to always be there, but at the same time, where's your heart? One thing that we all should have is that heart for God.
I think that statement for you, Nick, even when I hear you say that, I also hear that apart from Christ, we will go nowhere as a people in our advancements fighting against racism. Because ultimately it comes from, the root of it is sin. And the only cure for that sin is Christ. And so I think that it's a good reminder for me, like, yes, it's great that we work on reform in areas where we need reform for our country, or that we would put systems into place to fight against systemic racism and things like that. I don't want to say structures aren't important, but I do want to say that they can't be the tip of the spear. Like, it's only going to go so deep and do so much if the tip of that spear isn't Christ himself, that is saying, this is more than just about the United States. This is more than just about minorities. This is about kingdom of God. And so I agree. Where I kind of get nervous or worried when I'm not worried, but like I get discouraged when I feel like the battle is just, man, we're too focused on, we think that this, we just finished an election, and we have a new president in January. Is that when the president's January 20th or something like that? Okay. But like, great, we have Biden and we have Harris, but
it's not just a battle.
They're just two people, right? And they are. It's just not flesh and blood. Exactly. It's a power. It's a battle against powers and principalities, and those powers and principalities don't want to see racism go anywhere, and we'll fight to see it stick and to see it stay. So I love that thought in the sense of like, not in the sense of disrespecting or belittling all of our diversity and just the existence of color in our world, but to say that we got to have something better to protect that than a plan or an idea. We got to have God, and so.
And even when we do get that grave understanding that, okay, we're at that kingdom mindset or whatnot, God never said that it still wouldn't be sugar-coated roses or whatnot.
Yeah.
Bible
It's not
says
gonna be
many
easy.
other afflictions
Yeah.
of the righteous. We just got to understand that God will
Sugar-coated
deliver us all.
What's wrong with these roses? That's sugar.
Sugar.
The sugar.
Put that rose in your mouth. Watch out with them thorns out.
Just straight sugar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also, what an incredible opportunity to exercise the faith that you do have by aiming to notice and recognize the areas in your heart, the prejudices in your heart, the biases that you have, and looking towards that self-examination to be able to, like we were saying all the time, Psalm 139. Yeah, search me, know me. If there's any offensive way within me, and be able to take that to God and not, if you do feel shame in what you're experiencing, also bringing that to Him, because His heart isn't for you to sit in that shame and to sit in the thinking of a heart of someone who is racist, you know? And I feel like just being able to continue to like ask questions and research and just aiming to that kingdom mindset of recognizing that, okay, like you are a child of God, I am a child of God, we are equal, we are one. I feel like it's just can be so powerful, and also recognizing who God is and His character when you look at the varying races that we have in our globe, in our world,
In our snow globe.
in our snow globe,
Yeah,
in our snow globe.
When you think about how amazing it is for God to create everything that God has created, as far as from knowing the number of hairs on our head to just creating the small things and the creatures, every little living thing, man. Why sit back and not have that mind frame of like, hey, I'm a child of one that created all of this anyway. So where's my heart at?
Yeah.
Where should my heart be postured at anyway? Like I'm a child of someone who created the differences, but in our differences, he also created us to love,
Right.
and to extend that heart, the same heart He extended to us, that causes us to live, breathe, and eat, and see the differences.
Yeah.
That's a great point, and even with thinking of what you were saying earlier with the kingdom mindset, I bring it back to exactly to what you were talking about right now too. But in that kingdom mindset, we do have that. There's that unity. We have that same heart, one heart, neither Jew nor Gentile, male nor female. But at the same time, God created the Jew, the Gentile, the male, the female, and I think that. Oh man, I just lost my thought. I think that. Oh, where was I?
You got it.
What did you say again? Before that, do you remember what you said?
Uh,
I hate when people ask me if I remember what I said, because I'm like, I don't know what I said.
I don't know what to say.
What, from the part of just
Yeah, right before I
seeing
jumped
the
in.
differences?
Yeah. And that how He created the
How
differences.
He created the
And
differences.
to be unified.
Oh man, guys, I had a great point and I lost it.
It's
We'll come
okay.
back to it.
Maybe-
I'll get it.
Maybe you'll think about it.
Maybe the Lord just shut me up. He's like, you know what?
He
said,
you need to shut that
Yeah.
mouth. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Maybe at some
We'll see if I
point.
get it.
Right. And so I want to be able to finish up our conversation here with really just asking you what you feel like your hope is to be able to actually have that lasting impact of that racial reconciliation. Because we know it's one thing to say, I want racial reconciliation, and it's another thing to be able to make moves towards that and make moves towards that unity that you were referring to. What's your hope there?
I give my hope for just the different levels. My hope in this particular season for the young people is that races are bad, but that you don't just see, don't focus on the inequalities, or don't focus on the strife that the current season is bringing. Focus on the matter of fact that you can change your life just by the way you live in your current. My hope for the people of color, or my hope for black people in this moment, is that we also approach things from a grace standpoint. And that's extending the grace to ourselves, knowing that, okay, yes, we don't live in a unified world, but at the same time, you're able and you're more than capable and willing, and God has given you the strength to kind of lead the charge to begin to live in a more unified world, to not so much live so much in the past, although not forgetting the past, but understanding the progressiveness that we can get to the future. And that's what I want. That's the hope coming from just what black people should get in this moment. My hope for the world in this moment is that heart, just remembering that heart, because God has created us all. That's that one unified piece to all of us in the midst of all our differences, is that heart. So just extending that heart to one another.
Yeah.
Even if you look over there and say, hey, Tate's a white guy, still don't like him, but guess what? My heart is with him.
I don't like him, not because he's white, but because he's just a weird guy.
Right. And my hope for white people, even in this season,
Yeah.
is to just that same grace. Extend that grace to yourself. We know that it won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
The change or the shift. We know that there's a lot that is confusing on both ends when the issue of race is brought up.
Sure.
But be willing to have that heart to be open for these hard conversations or these discussions.
Yeah.
Have the courage to ask your questions and not so much keep it at a taboo place in your mind.
Yeah.
Be willing to learn as well. Be willing to have that empathy for those that may not look like you. Be willing to put yourself in the shoes of another person, and that's for both sides, or for any differences, whether you're black, white, Indian, or persons that are not of color and all that type of stuff. For everybody, is just approach everything from an empathetic standpoint.
Yeah.
Because that's where we begin to buy our wood.
Yeah.
To start building the bridge.
Absolutely.
To complete this daunting task, or at least move forward to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good word. You didn't ask me this, but I'm going to answer it.
Okay. Tell us.
Since I had such a great last name. I hope that I have for myself and for just our nation and obviously our world as well, but is you mentioned earlier, it's Psalm 139. I that's big for me in the sense that it asks us to search. We're asking God, search me, know me, see if there's any offensive way within me. And early on, I think right after the death of George Floyd, I had a long conversation with Nick's brother, Shannon, and then Nick and I also had a conversation not long after that, but then I talked with a buddy of mine who's a police officer, and a handful of other conversations, some older black gentlemen and just try to get a feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I left those conversations almost discouraged because what I saw was like fear on both sides, and confusion and uncertainty and also hope. But like, I just remember thinking, Lord, this is way bigger
Mm-hmm.
than I realized, and this is not an easy fix. But then I started thinking about Psalm 139 and was like, Lord, I feel like our best bet is if we as a people, whether you're Asian, black, white, Native American, whatever, that we would all be willing to say, Lord, search me, know me, see if there's any offensive way within me, and lead me in the way everlasting. And for me to even, I don't even want to say, all right, Lord, I have black friends, so obviously there's nothing you need to search. But to not even say that, but to say, all right, Lord, I don't think I'm racist, but search me, know me, see if there's any offensive way within me. And perhaps he brings up something that's like, you didn't think you were racist, but I found
got something.
I
Yeah.
found a
Right.
little bit of racism down in there. And
Yeah.
if I'm honest and vulnerable, I'm sure he would, right? I can't think of myself as a fallen human being where if you look deep enough that he wouldn't find that.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that we would all, regardless of what we think we are or we aren't, that we would all ask that question about ourselves, not about the person that we think it should be asked about. Like, yeah, you should ask my uncles so-and-so. Like, if any of my uncles are watching this, that was just hypothetical. I don't think you're, I mean, certainly the Lord should search your heart, but
Yeah.
but you know, I don't want to go in with any preconceived thought of like, you can look all you want, but you ain't gonna find anything. But I want to genuinely ask, look in my heart, and show me what it is. Don't just change it without me knowing, but
Yeah.
reveal it to me, and then let's change it. But like, I want to know like the things I
Bring it up.
need to work on, and so that's a big hope for me. And then as those things are brought to light, I don't want to ask that question. Search me, know me, see if there's any offensive way within me. And as those offenses are brought out, I'm hopeful that there's a grace for those offenses, and that we can all say, all right, Tate, here's where you kind of stink,
Right.
but don't worry,
Yeah.
I'm going to help you get through it. And I live 3 doors down from Nick's brother. And so Nick's niece and my daughters and his nephew, when Shannon will let him, sometimes he's like, there's too many girls down there. So
Right.
let's just,
You
stay
can go
down
out
here
there
with
play
me.
with those girls.
But they were talking. This was right around the George Floyd time, or right after it happened. And our kids are just kind of aware of what's going on. At that time, Shannon's kids and my kids. And I remember Shannon's daughter asked, or just mentioned, as our kids were playing, just themselves, weren't any adults there, and they just said randomly, like, white cops are killing black people. And so my oldest comes down to our house afterwards, and it's like, she said this, what does that mean? And we were walking her through, but one of the things my daughter said that struck me, she said, when we look back on the history of us, are white people are we going to be the bad guys? And, you know, that was like, that's a humbling thing, right? So it's in those moments where I'm like, Lord, search me, know me. If there's anything where I'm looking back, where I look on back on my life and I'm going to be not a good reflection of you, then I want to know it, and I want to rid myself of it. I want you to rid me of it, because when people look back, I look back on my life, I want people to say, Tate reflected Jesus. And I recognize without him, they can easily say Tate was just a bad guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
It's a great,
good.
there you go.
it's a great ending.
Yeah.
Great ending.
Out of the mouth of babes. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was so good to have you here, Nick, and just to be able to hear from you and learn more about who you are and what you believe and your experiences.
I'm so grateful. Grateful for the opportunity, man.
Yeah.
As Tate stated earlier, when we were kind of figuring out how we were going to have this hard conversation, I marveled at the opportunity to just sit and talk, and that somebody was just wanted to have a perspective from the black man or whatnot. But I'm so grateful because one of my best buddies is a white guy, and even this whole season, it was so hard to even address it. Although we've been close like this since T-ball.
Yeah.
When stuff is brought to light like this, it's always hard. So just the aspect of even Tate coming to me kind of opened up that sense. And I'm like, hey, buddy, you can talk to me, man.
Yeah.
You can talk to me. So he started out by just
Yeah.
sending like little videos like, I think this is pretty good. I said, Mitch, you can talk, brother.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And it was so just releasing for everything. So that's why I'm such a fan of these hard conversations. And it is my hope that all the listeners that have tuned into this podcast and that are viewing it could begin to have those conversations as well, because it's so freeing.
yeah.
It's so
Right.
freeing.
Yeah, and knowing the influence that you have on your circle too, and being able to impact, like just knowing that impact that can have and the way that can spread
Yes, man.
is very valuable.
Spread like Jesus.
That is
It was good fun,
too
though. Good fun.
Yes,
Good
yes.
fun.
Well, thank you for tuning in and listening or viewing, however you were with us, and we will be with you guys shortly, next couple of weeks.
Be with you shortly.
Shortly.
I'll be with you shortly.
Shortly.
I
Yeah.
love that ending.